Okay.
Okay, good morning all and welcome to this meeting of Cabinet on the 16th of December 2021. I'll take apologies for absence first, please.
Thank you, Leader. I have apologies of absence from Councillor Elliot King and Mark Thomas.
Okay, thank you. Any other apologies to present? Councillor Hopkin?
Could I just, I'm waiting a phone call from the doctor, so I might have to nip out, right? So if I do disappear, I've got to call up the doctor.
No problem, David. Okay, we understand that. Thank you very much. Okay, any others? If not, we'll move to item 2, which is disclosures of personal and prejudicial interests. Are there any declarations to be made today? Councillor Smith?
Yeah, item 7, I'm a member of the local government, local authority government appointment panel, and I've got dispensation to speak but not vote. On item 16, member of the West Glamorgan Archives Committee, personal interest only.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Gibbard?
Thank you. Yeah, same 2 items. Item 7, advise it's a personal and prejudicial interest, so I'll leave the meeting. And item 16, similarly, I'm a member of the Archives Committee, so personal interest only, but I'm non-voting member today anyway.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Child?
Yeah, item 10, member of the Gower AONB Partnership Board. Personal only.
Okay, thank you. And those are all the interests for today. Councillor Stevens?
Same with Mark, item 10, member of the Gower AONB Partnership Board.
Okay, thank you very much. We move then on to announcements of Leader of the Council. I have no announcements for today, so we'll move straight to public question time. Mr. Evans, have we had any public questions submitted?
Sorry, there's minutes, Leader, as well.
Oh, apologies. Yes, I skipped over the important minutes. We'll do that. Let's do those then first. Okay, so item 3, the minutes, pages 1 to 7. I've not been notified of any changes, so unless there are any that anybody wishes to raise today, I'll move that we accept these as a true record. Could I have a seconder, please?
Happy to second.
Thank you very much. All those in. Thank you very much. That's carried. Okay, so as I said, no announcements from me today, but we move on then to public question time. Mr. Evans, do we have any questions submitted?
None submitted, Leader.
Okay, thank you. We'll go then to councillor question time. Are there any councillors present who wish to ask any questions? No? Okay. Then we'll go next to the local authority governor appointments. Okay, so Councillor Smith.
Yeah, I formally move the report, Leader.
Okay, thank you. Any questions or comments? If not, then I'll formally second. Mr. Evans, if you can launch the vote.
Okay. Slight delay, here it is. Right, the vote has been launched. It should be with you. It should be with you now. I'll give you a moment. Has anybody been unable to vote virtually? No? Okay, I shall close the poll then. And that's unanimous for, Leader.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Evans. Thank you, everyone. We'll move then to...
please, Leader. We call Louise back in.
Oh, apologies. Yes, Mr. Evans, if we can invite Louise back in.
Yeah, invite sent.
Okay. We'll move to item 8 then, Q2 performance monitoring report. And if I bring Mr. Smith in to provide an update and talk us through the report, and then I'll come in to give some political comment and to move the report. Mr. Smith.
Leader, this is the performance management one rather than the budget monitoring one, so I wasn't anticipating giving any officer advice on this one.
Okay, thank you. Go to Councillor Stevens then next. Apologies.
No worries. Yeah, thank you, Leader. Yeah, I'm pleased to be bringing this report to Cabinet today. The report presents the performance results for the second quarter of the year, and as you'll see mentioned throughout the report, the ongoing COVID pandemic continues to bring huge challenges to the council, our services and our workforce. This inevitably has had a significant impact on the usual areas of performance across the council. But despite this, you'll see that on page 15, that overall 58% of the indicators improved or stayed the same compared with last year. You'll see from page 18 that the effects of COVID on the construction sector are becoming increasingly clear, from labour shortages to supply issues. But despite all this, our regeneration projects have continued to make substantial progress on site during Q2. There are several new indicators within the report, and we'll be ensuring that the baselines are recorded so we can keep track of the performance throughout the year and have a comparison for the next report. So I'm happy to move the recommendation laid out.
Thank you, Councillor Stevens, for that. Again, as you've said, yeah, very, very challenging year, but continued really good performance across directorates of the council. I don't know whether any cabinet members want to come in and pick up any specific items within their portfolios. If not, then I'm very happy to formally second. And Mr. Evans, if we could launch the vote, please.
Thank you, Leader. The vote is now launched. Give you all the moments. Right, has anybody been unable to vote? Councillor Child?
Yeah, oh, it's just come up. Hang on.
Okay.
I voted.
Okay. Anybody else having difficulties? No. I shall close the poll then. And that again is unanimous for, Leader.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Evans. Okay, we're now back on the agenda, so hopefully got it right this time. The Revenue and Capital Budget Monitoring Report, second quarter, 2021-22, and I will call Mr. Smith in to introduce this report. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, on this one, I give some officer advice to the report. You have the report in front of you with 4 recommendations, and I'll hand over to you in due course to add to it and to move those recommendations if so content. In normal format, the first 3 recommendations. The third one is as clunky as last time with the first quarter, around recognising that directorates are overspent. So I have to give them a bit of a telling off as a Section 151 officer, but it's also tempered by the fact that they're only overspent as a result of COVID. And I'll draw your attention to that in due course in the report. And then the new recommendation is recommendation 4, which is around giving early consideration to the emerging level of revenue underspend. But my advice to you is you actually make the decision when you receive the third quarter report from me, given the inherent uncertainty that we all face at the current time. Section 2.3, just to emphasise, summarises the overall position, which is that services are £16 million forecast overspent, but 19 million is due to COVID, which therefore means that if COVID weren't still impacted upon us, we would actually have directorates underspending, and that is the reason for that very clunky third recommendation. If I draw your attention next to section 2.7, we continue this year to adopt the same approach with Welsh Government of claiming hardship costs and reimbursement of costs many months in arrears. It's a slow, clunky process, and in line with what I've said before, the process is the process, and it means we're not so certain on the sums we'll get back, but I'm still incredibly grateful, as are other Section 151 officers, to be able to access those funds in the current year. And you can see there in that little summary table the relative success we've had in getting 80-90% of the claims back. Going forward, of course, at the moment there is no scheme for next year because there is still stuff to be done, and ultimately Welsh Government's budgets are overall constrained by what the Treasury decides. Section 2.9 draws your attention to some central sums I still have available which I haven't fully spent, including this year's central inflation provision. But of course, next year's central inflation provision may be under enormous pressure, given you've all seen the headline increases in CPI that came out yesterday and have been well above that target 2% for the economy as a whole. Section 3 summarises the contingency position, turbocharged by the 10 million that was carried forward from the previous year in terms of our excellent outturn positions, and proposes using all of it to draw the contingency down to 0, but does then drive that fourth recommendation about early consideration of sums available to put potentially into another reserve in line with the intentions you set out at council recently, Leader. Section 4 draws it all together as an overall summary, and the table at the bottom of page 78 summarises that services and central budgets are £4.7 million underspent, which is broadly in line with your aspiration for about £5 million, as referenced at council. I'll draw your attention on the next page to paragraph C, which indicates that collection fund is still expected to be about £2 million short. And last year, the Welsh Government fully reimbursed us for our losses. Discussions continue with Welsh Government officials. There is no certainty of a continuation of reimbursement, but we will watch this space. Section D also emphasises that there is a forecast underspend of £5 million on capital financing at the moment. And in line with previous council agreed strategy, that will go into the capital equalisation reserve. A caveat on that one, going forward in future years, you should expect less of an underspend given the substantial external debt refinancing I did in the current year and previously reported to council. Section E emphasises there is still regrettably no resolution to the National Local Government Pay Award. The council is a national government, member of the National Scheme for Employment, and doesn't determine those increases itself. But obviously we're quite well into nearly the end of the third quarter and we're still awaiting for national negotiations on that, which adds to the uncertainty. Section 5 summarises the capital budget, and in terms of where we are, the spend to date is slightly ahead of where we would be normally at this time of year at the end of September position, and will soon be updated to the third quarter. And I would expect us to be getting near the £200 million mark again this year. Last year, you recall, we passed the £200 million mark because it was a much bigger capital programme, but it's still a budgeted capital programme of well over £200 million. I draw your attention as ever to the housing revenue account and the ongoing look at the risk areas there in terms of arrears and other impacts, but remain relatively relaxed at this point in time, and it continues to be well managed to manage its own financial affairs as it's required to do so separately from the general fund. And then finally draw your attention to Appendix A, which pulls it all together onto a single page, emphasising the overspend on services at the top, the central sums available, and the £5 million worth of capital financing, which ultimately squirts all the way through the presentation and the system to balance the budget formally, recognising that £2 million forecast deficit still on the collection fund in the current year. And by final way of sign off in terms of advice from me, I would remind you that when I gave advice to council on setting the tax base, I have anticipated some reduction in council tax collection levels, which you've already as a council taken into account. So I will summarise there. It's my usual whistle stop tour through, but overall my advice is that's a relatively very good position to be in for second quarter, a service underspend, a capital financing underspend, and options when you get to third quarter to be able to consider putting more money into reserves, which is not the case in all councils across England and Wales. So at that point, I'll hand back to you, Leader, if you wanted to add anything, and ultimately ask you to consider moving the recommendations if you're so content. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Smith. And again, thanks to you and your team for the work done on this. Look, I absolutely agree with you. I think, having done this for many years now, the quarter two reports are usually in the negative, and we are usually looking at ways to catch up and balance the budget at this point in the financial year. Over the last few years, we've been lucky enough to be in a surplus position at quarter two, and the trajectory was, as you said, is likely to mean that we will end up in that position at the end of year, which is a healthy position. But we are carrying some significant risks, as you said, not least the fact that the national pay has not been resolved, that we have inflation skyrocketing at the present time, and of course we have now the onset of a potential further set of actions needed to be taken by governments and ourselves in relation to the growing Omicron impacts of the pandemic, all of which will no doubt mean that budgets will once again need to be varied in the coming months. So we're carrying some significant risks here, but as you've said, relative to other councils, and certainly those councils in England, some of whom were carrying significant deficits, we are in a relatively healthy position to weather that storm. And again, thanks go out to all department heads and all cabinet members for the prudent work they are doing in terms of making sure that budgets are retained in a healthy manner, and that service delivery, as we've seen in the previous report, continues to be of a high standard. So a very good position to be. So with that said, I'll formally move the report, and if I could ask for somebody to second, please.
Happy to second.
Thank you very much. Okay, if Mr. Evans, sorry, before we go to the vote, is there anybody who wants to come in and comment on any of the financial matters, or has anything to ask? If not, Mr. Evans, then, if you want to launch the vote, please.
Thank you, Leader. The vote is launched. Okay, anybody not had the opportunity to vote electronically? Councillor Child. We've had it now. Okay. Anybody else, any others struggling? Okay, I shall close the poll. And again, that is unanimous, all voting for, Leader.
Next, we have the Gower ANOB Management Plan 21-22. I'll hand over to Cabinet Member.
Yeah, thanks, Leader. What I would like to say, this is an offer of funding for £108,000. There is, we do need a match fund, I believe, 22,750, which we can find within existing budget. I've got nothing else to move the report, but this will continue to do the good work within the AUNB. Formally move.
Thank you, Councillor Hopkins. Councillor Child.
Yeah, I congratulate officers on the quick turnaround of this, because I don't think they had very long to work on it, but it's valuable funding from NRW. We welcome it, and it's valuable work, increasingly valuable work in Gower, because the increasing pressure there is, certainly in the last couple of years, when people seem to have discovered what a gem it is and are going there in increasing numbers. So I welcome the money and support the recommendation.
Okay, thank you very much. Is there anybody else who wishes to come in? If not, I'm happy to formally second that report. Thank you. And we've got Mr. Evans. We'll go to the vote, please.
Thank you, Leader. Again, the vote has been launched. Hopefully you've all received it and you've all been able to vote. Anybody unable to vote electronically? No. I shall close the poll. And again, that's unanimous for, Leader.
Okay, thank you very much. Next up, we have the South Wales Corporate Joint Committees, but before we go to the formal report, I'll invite Councillor Black in to give feedback from scrutiny in terms of their pre-decision look at the Corporate Joint Committees update. Councillor Black.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Thank you very much for allowing me to give this feedback from the Scrutiny Programme Committee. As you know, we spent a fair bit of time looking at this, and you should all have had the letter which was sent out to Cabinet with giving the details. So I won't repeat everything in that letter, but just to pick out one or two things which the committee raised in terms of concerns or issues which they felt needed to be looked at as this scheme progressed. The first one was in relation to project costs. I think we all noted that the cost of this effectively has increased by nearly 2.5 times since this was last considered in December 2020. And there are issues, of course, because now you're taking on the Miss Selfridge and there may well be grants involved. So we understand those are factors in that, but we are concerned that the costs continue to be contained.
Apologies, Councillor Black. I brought you in on the wrong item. My apologies. Okay. It's on the Corporate Joint Committees. Apologies, Councillor Black.
Okay, well in that case, I'll wait to them.
I'll bring you in on the right item. My apologies. My screen is frozen, so I'm getting a bit of a random agenda item order here in terms of my notes. So apologies. Okay, apologies for that, folks. We'll go back to agenda item 11, which is the West Wales Corporate Joint Committees update. This report is before us as we have 5 recommendations. You'll see. In order for us to move forward with the set formal establishment of corporate joint committees across the South Wales region. We have had extensive discussions between the regional chief execs and the regional leaders in terms of how we approach this, and discussions are continuing. We have an obligation by January to have set a budget and to have the arrangements defined in terms of how we take corporate joint committees forward in our area. I want to place on record my thanks to Phil Roberts as chief exec and the other chief execs for the work that they've done along with our legal teams in trying to establish the arrangements which are most suitable to us. there are some key questions that need to be identified within the report, which are still being worked through. Obviously, this creates a new entity, essentially a super entity, which brings together a number of the statutory functions of councils, including land use, housing, transport, energy, and economic development. It doesn't include education or social care, because obviously they have their own regional arrangements and they remain outside of the Corporate Joint Committee's scope at this stage. However, it does also include the ability for the national parks to participate in items, and also to have a role in determining the strategic planning arrangements, which again is a significant change. Funding wise, obviously there are significant costs around setting up of the 4 corporate joint committees in Wales. We've had some initial funding, but when we move to formalise the committee and put the arrangements in place proper, they're in shadow form at the present time, then obviously not just the work to organise and operate the corporate joint committees, but also to make sure that the work that the joint committees will undertake through those various strands will also need to be funded. So we're in the process of determining what those costs are and what the profile of the costs are, and those will be submitted to Welsh Government in due course. But legislatively, as people will remember, this is now in, we have to move towards it. We'll obviously be looking at the appropriate scrutiny arrangements as well for corporate joint committees across our region, and all of that needs to be in place early next year. So quite a tight timescale, quite a lot of work to be done in order to get that all up and running. And so with that, I don't know whether Phil Roberts wishes to come in and add anything to what I've said. More than welcome to do so. Phil?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I think the only thing I'd add is that there has been an awful lot of work, and you're wrong to attribute it to me. I'm probably the person who's done some, but not the most, and very grateful to our monitoring officer and Section 151 officer. We got ourselves into a position now where we're likely to be able to get arrangements agreed relatively rapidly, and that includes the administrative arrangements for the Corporate Joint Committee, which we'll be bringing forward in the next week or so. So yeah, I think I can give Cabinet and Council a sense of confidence that the arrangements will meet the legal requirements under the Act, and that we will be among the first to be ready when the new arrangements kick off. So I won't say more than that, Chair, but grateful for officer support on this. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Roberts. Appreciate your comments there, and echo your thanks. Is there anybody who wishes to come in and comment on this item? Okay, thanks very much. If we can go then to the vote and launch the vote, please, Mr. Evans.
Thank you, Leader. The vote's been launched. Okay, has anybody not been able to vote remotely? Okay, that seems okay. I shall close the poll then. And we can see that's a unanimous 4, Leader.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you, colleagues. Our final item for open session today is the Castle Square Regeneration FPR7. If I can go to Councillor Francis Davis, please.
Thank you, Leader. Castle Square Regeneration is the FPR7 report. You'll see on paragraph 1 the introduction, paragraph 2 background and design progress. 2.1 will tell you why we've applied for this, and 2.2 shows the lead consultant, Spider Management, and the purpose of it is that we are looking to have a greener Castle Square, which will have multifunctional benefits for residents and contribute positively to creating an attractive destination space for visitors. So we'll be increasing the green area from, I think, is about 29% to more like 41% of green area in that area. Also, it'll incorporate a cafe, restaurant, pavilions, 2 new commercial units that they will both have green roofs on them to ensure that there's far more green in there. And there are in Appendix 1 artist impressions of what they would look like. Bulletproof 3 on paragraph 2 shows the activating the square. It will include water jet features at ground level, which will be a visual focus for the square. I'm sure bring lots of enjoyment for the many children that will visit. Then bullet point 4, placemaking identity, then the integration and connecting the public space. All this will be making sure that we link up High Street down through Castle Street, High Street, Castle Bailey Street, linking into the newer developments further on. So paragraph 3 shows the equality and engagement implications and the integrated impact assessment that's being carried out. And also the financial implications are shown in paragraph 4. 4.4 shows the funding support that we get in from Welsh Government. 4.4 shows the revenue implications, and also we're looking at future management and maintenance so that the revenue coming in can't be ring-fenced to ensure that we have ongoing maintenance of this very important square. This will be greatly welcomed, I'm sure, by the public, who've always shown a yearning to go back to far more green in the city centre. And so you can see in paragraph 5 the benefits and also the risks in the scheme, but I'm sure the benefits far outweigh any risks, and the legal implications are shown on paragraph 6. Happy to move. There are appendixes 1 or 2, and I'm sure that anybody looking at those appendix will see the artist impressions, which I think are quite spectacular. It's gone through REBA stage 2, and now we're going for 3. And I'm thinking that this will be really welcomed, not only by the residents of Swansea, but visitors alike. Happy to move, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Francis Davis. And yes, I'd fully agree. I think there's been already a significant uplift for the Kingsway area, for parts of Princess Way, for Wine Street, and obviously the areas around the arena and phase 2 of Copper Bay. And Castle Square is a major historical part of our city centre. The efforts to increase the greenery and usable public space in that area are really important, as well as providing reasons for people to be in the square. The square at the moment is something people pass through, or is often, occasionally used as a protest spot, but it doesn't really have another purpose other than that. And I think that's what we're doing with this, is bringing back that connection point, that really important space and place-making space for the city centre. And it's, I think it's a fantastic design that's been brought forward. It'll include play fountains for children, and a great place for families to enjoy, linking nicely with the upgraded areas around it. So really very happy to support this. Councillor Pugh. I'll formally second before Councillor Pugh comes in. There you go, Councillor Pugh.
I would just like to comment as all on that. I really welcome this. I love trees, but the thought of being able to take young children going into the city centre, having somewhere for them to be able to enjoy as well, and just that sense of well-being and being able to relax there. I think this green area is every bit as important as anything else that goes on in the city centre, and it takes me back to my childhood days when I used to visit Swansea, and there was far more greenery there in Castle Gardens at the time. So I absolutely welcome this. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Pugh. Councillor Gibbard.
Yeah, sorry, Alison beat me to it. I was going to say exactly the same. How lovely it is that it's going to hopefully provide a little sort of green oasis for families in the city centre. I'm really excited to see the play things coming through, like the fountains and things like that, and more space, and just make it a much more pleasant environment for everyone, but especially local families. A nice free attraction for the nicer weather days. Anyway.
Great, thank you, Councillor Gibbard. I fully agree. Councillor Child.
Yeah, apart from all of that, I think the quality of the design and the architecture is really good. I was impressed, and it comes across in the artist impressions. I'm sure the once it's built, it'll look even better. But I think the fact that we have gone for quality architecture in the site is really good, and it is. You're right, Leader, the way it links up between Wine Street and Oxford Street, and then through the church to the arena area will be great.
Great, thank you, Councillor Child. Councillor Francis Davies, I come back to you.
Yeah, what I failed to mention, I think as well, when we've looked at Reba Stage 2 and going on, is using the different asphalt in Kyle Street and Castle Bailey Street of a buff colour, which actually brings that more open space to the area, and the feeling of widening the pavements in Kyle Street to have more tables and chairs outside, which is going to be welcome. It'll make the entire space look a lot bigger, whilst also having that green effect. So I think the architects have been doing an absolutely great job on this, and I'd like to thank the input from all cabinet members when we looked at Reba Stage 2 to ensure that where we were going with this was in the right direction, and has added far greater value in the aesthetics to it overall.
Thank you, Mr. Francis Davies. Thank you, everyone. I think it's been overwhelmingly positively received, this scheme when the visuals have gone into the press, and I think it will be a really positive step forward for the city centre again. So thank you all. Mr. Evans, then, if there are no further comments or questions, we'll go to the vote.
Thank you, Leader. The vote has been launched. Has anybody not received it? Anyone unable to vote electronically? No, that all looks well. I shall close the poll. And that is unanimous for, Leader.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Evans. Okay, everyone, we'll move to our next report, which is exclusion of the public. Have the reasons laid out there in the report by the Chief Legal Officer. Can I ask if you all agree?
Aye.
Okay, thank you very much. That's unanimously carried. Okay, so